All right, hi everyone. Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. Recently, I did a Let's Argue post on social media. I got a lot of responses and hot takes and unpopular opinions, per usual. But one stood out to me specifically that made me want to kind of pause and do a bit of a video here. The proclamation in this tweet read something like, "Hip hop has the most sub-genres," which on its face I was pretty sure was false, mostly because hip hop of the major popular music genres, be that rock, be that electronic music, be that pop, metal, so on and so forth, it's not one of the older genres. And while it may not be true of every style of music to ever be invented, usually the longer something is around, the more kind of like, subdivided strains of that style tend to crop up. Still, even with this claim being false on its face, I had to wonder, how many subgenres does hip hop have? Is that number large or small in relation to other major genres of music? So in order to find this out, I went on the #1 website for completely making up genres out of the blue. That would be Rate Your Music, where people log on not just to give ratings on records they like and dislike and, write very well thought out dissertations on, those opinions. But also an interesting aspect of this platform is they kind of freely allow the user base to categorize the records and songs that are logged into the site. This means things on the platform not only get super specific, not leaving things up to simply an umbrella term like electronic music. No, we can dig even further down into deconstructed club, digital cumbia, and drum and bass if we want to. Let's skip right to the $1,000,000 question here. How many subgenres does hip hop currently have on the Rate Your Music platform? Right now, as I record this video, it says 82. Like I said earlier, it's one of the younger major genres here, but also it's a very prolific one, a very active one. Especially over the last 10 years, we've heard a lot of different and new substrains of hip hop cropping up all over the internet, numerous fusions with other styles as well as the genre's influence has grown to be more global. Now, to sort of get this out of the way, obviously, we have rock on the list, which stands currently on Rate Your Music with 261 subgenres. Now, this list over here also breaks things down according to not just rock, but also punk, and we have metal too, which I mean is obviously, kind of a subgenre in itself of rock, a major one, a huge one, an influential one, but still, obviously metal branches off of rock music as an institution. Further down the page, we have classical music, which on Rate Your Music has 186 subgenres. There are lots of various strains of classical music that tend to vary not just according to instrumentation used and compositional styles, but there's also quite a bit of regional classical music out there and era-based classical music out there. So you have to kind of think about how many different strains and styles there could potentially be for every location and time period in which classical music is being made. So for there to be almost 200 subgenres of classical music is not really a surprise to me. We have a different section for dance. We have a different section for electronic music, though it's pretty funny because the record on the cover of the dance section is LCD Sound System Sound of Silver, which there's quite a few electronic aspects throughout that album. And on Daft Punk's, Discovery there's some live instrumentation too, and that is certainly a dance record. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the dance section here, but I will say, electronic music with 340 subgenres listed on this site, again, I'm not surprised because, my lord, there are lots and lots and lots of very hyper-specific styles of electronic music out there, which routinely make for lots of contested debate within the scene.
Oh, bro, you said it's house, but what kind of house is it? Is it acid house? Is it tech house? Is it garage house? Is it ghetto house?
Moving even further down the list, we have folk. Folk music with 406 subgenres on the Rate Your Music platform. Even more so than the classical section that we addressed earlier, higher on the list, you have folk music which tends to be quite regional for pretty much every country and culture on the planet. And on top of that, you have all of the more modern iterations that fuse folk music with electronic music, with pop music, folk punk and anti-folk, chamber folk, so on and so forth. So yeah, folk music, 400 subgenres, maybe slightly overestimated to a degree, and are some of those subgenres in terms of like the regionality of a few of them, like really worth getting hyper specific over? Maybe not, but still, I'm not really surprised to see here that folk music is large and in charge. With that being said, I want to pose to you guys more subgenres, less subgenres, the most, the least. Does any of it even matter? Ultimately, what is it even a reflection of? While I did insinuate earlier in this video that it's most likely a product of age and experience for a style of music, that's not necessarily always the case, because when we dig into other genre lists on this page, we have blues, which currently stands with 20 subgenres. It's ridiculous that that Tom Waits record is standing at the top of it. Furthermore, jazz has but 45 on the platform right now, which again, kind of surprising considering how many wild and regional styles of jazz there are across the world, which specifically had a huge impact on, you know, the genre that we're focusing on primarily for this video, hip hop. Obviously, quite a few amazing and groundbreaking hip hop albums wouldn't even exist if not for the jazz music here, you know, to sample, to lace into them. So again, the number of subgenres within an institution of music is not the be all end all indicator of that genre of music's significance. So with that point made and out of the way, what I would ultimately like to tell you guys is that very little of this is a big deal because genres are just made the fuck up anyway. There's like no true hard science to what genre is what genre a lot of the time. There's a lot of gray area within genres, not just between different styles of music, but also the criteria that makes for a genre, because there are some genres of music that have very hard and specific characteristics in terms of like instrumentation used, or, you know, the time signatures, or, you know, the compositional quality of that genre of music. And there are some genres that are pretty much just umbrella terms to describe a particular aesthetic or vibe that we heard during an era of music, be that like new wave or something like that. Because ultimately, like, what does a new wave song sound like? If progressive rock is so progressive, why are there so many progressive bands that sound like they're out of the freaking 70s? Doesn't sound very progressive to me. Wouldn't the weirdest, most experimental and daring and difficult to define or understand rock bands out there currently be the progressive rock bands of today? Look, the whole genre thing, it's not perfect. And believe me when I say, as a longtime music fan, it's nothing to obsess over. The only real and true purpose that genres serve, and should serve at the end of the day, is just making it easier for musicians and music fans alike to try to navigate this wild world of music a little bit easier, so that you could, you know, conveniently find things that you enjoy and are interested in. Gives you a rough idea of what you're listening to, maybe what other things could sound similar, what may have inspired the thing you're listening to, or, you know, what that thing you're listening to went on to inspire. And it also gives you a means to just kind of pick yourself up and move over into something completely different entirely. Pushing it further beyond that is fine if that's what you want to do, but just know once you get into those murkier waters, that's where things for music fans and music nerds alike get a little contentious. That's when you start having debates and people start getting heated because, you know, the bass tone on this genre has to sound just like this, and on this song that you want to put in that genre sounds like this instead. Actually, the BPM on this track is slightly lower than the BPM for, well... But again, at the end of the day, it's all music. It's all cool. It's all fun. It's all fine. It's all great. And yeah. That's my spiel on subgenres. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that to some degree. You're the best. Mwah, love you. Over here next to my head is another video that you could check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, subgenres forever.